Okay, today I'm gonna use Foltest again. Like, I mean, there's not much tweaks in this deck, but at least there's less removals now. Like, I mean, I already miss Northern Wind and Moondust. But hey, I'm loving engines in every deck. Like, I mean, it was successful in Nilfgaard, so I think it should be more successful in Northern Realms. Now, Foltest needs a buff. Let's be honest. Like, I mean, seriously, he's not the representative of the Northern Core decks because he's a strong leader, but well, if if his ability is used right, he can be. But right now, he's the representative for the core decks because based on provisions, he has the lowest among his colleagues. Okay, now hear me out here. I want to compare Foltest to Ithne, Etna, Enya. Okay? Among all the leaders in Gwent, she has the highest provisions. Now, in terms of balancing, arguably, if both of them were to face against Usurper, then yeah, Foltest is probably practically headless. But Ithne, however, if her ability gets locked, but then she has a lot of provisions, so that means that most of her cards are very powerful. Like, I mean, unlike other factions, maybe Syndicate can be the exception, but most factions can't use most of their powerful cards because they're expensive. Like, I mean, to be fair, each faction has their respective most powerful cards that have their synergies and archetypes, but they can only use one. But in Ithna's case, she can use everything. Practically everything that's in Squietel. Now, the buff that I'm suggesting for Foltest is maybe an additional charge or two. But sure, it may defeat my argument for facing against Usurper, so maybe instead of a charge, why not an increase in provisions? Because, yeah, it's either one or the other. For the sake of balancing, Foltest should not have both. Because if he's not facing Usurper, yeah, Zeal is a very powerful ability to have when you have a lot of engines. But if if he also has high provisions while having high amount of charges, like 5, then yeah, maybe that's just too overpowered for my taste. Now, last time, I was not so keen on using artifacts. Right now, as you can see, we have Bloody Flail. Back in back before I took a break, when I was still using Demavant, Bloody Flail was actually one of my favorite cards to have. But since a lot of players use artifact destroyers, so it became useless to have in the first place. Right now, because I'm not that smart, I only realized that Bloody Flail can be so powerful when there are 2 Arbalests in the board. I was surprised to find out that Bloody Flail had a little nerf, I guess. But so far, it's not that much of a nerf, but it's a faster way of using it, unlike before. Because I only realized a few games ago that Bloody Flail acted like Kian. Now, in that last round, I accumulated like 14 charges, and yeah, I didn't I didn't know that those 14 charges were only good for one unit. Next is the Queen of Engines, Queen Meve. Now, it's still the same, but a little bit more powerful this time and a little bit more easy to use. Because unlike Zeal is practically useless when you have dead engines. Well, right now, I'm actually experimenting on decks that don't have Roach anymore. Because thinning is not enough to win the game. I mean, not anymore. And I'm just a little bit tired in dealing with milling. Sure, there are counters to it, but yeah. So this time, or the next videos, maybe after the Northern Realm with Skellige, there'll be no Roach play. Because, well, we need all the cards in order to defeat Syndicate. Although I saw one Reddit post that said that a lot of people quit using that faction, but hey, just because they're quitting doesn't mean we're gonna be lenient about it. You see, the reason why I don't use Northern Wind anymore or any other removals is that removals don't grow, unlike engines. So removals are just good for wiping the board per turn. But if you can't wipe the board per turn, then yeah, it's gonna be useless. And if your opponent can pull out 2 units in one turn, then yeah, you're gonna be at a disadvantage. Like, I mean, as you can see here, my tactical advantage is still not used. Now, unlike the Nilfgaard course, I'm not using shields here, but rather what I'm using here is the Temerian Drummer. Because the boost helps and the zeal is very powerful. Yeah. Because the reason why you have shield in the first place is to at least give the unit a chance to use their ability. But as long as they live, then hey, shields are not that useful. This is a good argument to those who hate using shields. Lol, I was bluffing here in not using Temerian Drummer because I wanted to let the opponent misunderstand that an even more powerful unit is going to emerge when I'm saving the zeal. Well, right here, I wanted to say that Sarah is also a bluff, but yeah, that's just going way too far. Honestly, I was surprised that the opponent has removals to spew. Next is the Synchron Queen of the North. Although her pool is actually not that useful since there are a lot of thinners in this deck, but the fact that she can play a card and then you can play another card in the same turn, meaning you can actually play two engines in one turn, which is very valuable. Now, one of the reasons why I set my decks wherein they don't rely much on the ability of the leader is that in this situation, if you go up against a usurper, yeah, there's nothing you can do if all your units rely on Calante. Also, if your rate of misplace is just so high, then making sure that units can be independent on their own, or at least have their corresponding partners to survive, at least your chances of winning is still high despite of doing a lot of mistakes. You see, if this usurper had a portal, the opponent could have possibly wiped the board, but it only takes one engine though to be, well, if that one engine survives, it's gonna still be very formidable to face. That's why a lot of removals exist now. Sometimes when, like for example, I have Alzur's Thunder here, I just think it's just so much of a waste to use it on very small engines, but in this case, I should have used that already rather than using Kedwini Sergeant. Reading the situation can sometimes be very easy. Like, I mean, especially if you're up against a usurper. In this setup, I can tell that the opponent doesn't have 8 points, maybe even 9 to actually go over the score in one turn. That's why I called his bluff and just passed. Last is, well, supposedly the king of specters, but, well, I tried, but it really doesn't. Specters don't work right now as I want them to. Okay? That's why, for now, his ability is similar to Calantes, so I think it's better for him to stay with the course for now. If Spectres get a buff, then maybe I'll make a proper Spectre deck. The problem right now with the Spectres is that Drog. Drog has 7 power. That would mean if I were to play against Syndicate, that would be 7 coins. Right now, I'm following this doctrine of using units that don't go over 4 power. Now, in this deck, I'm using Korati's Heatwave. Yeah, that's the sign when you ran out of ideas. Sure, like I mean, Henselt has the second biggest amount of provisions in Gwent. And yes, I made an argument as to why Foltest should have higher provisions. But unlike Foltest, with Henselt, you have to use your most powerful bronzes rather than your golds. I have mentioned that all factions have their corresponding good cards, but with Northern Realms, however, they have weak bronzes. And yes, they have strong gold cards, but no one can afford those. in terms of provisions. If you want to use any of these decks, you can check the description below. Thanks for watching.